Here we are another week with this coronavirus, and now you've heard our president has extended this stay-at-home social distancing another 30 days until April the 30th, and our Governor Bill Lee has extended it until April the 14th in Tennessee. I just want to remind everyone, just allow common sense to continue to rule the day. Let's all be courteous to one another. Let's be what America has always been. Let's stand together in unity and be able to get through these days that none of us have ever seen before. It truly is times of uncertainty. And as most of you know, Fentress County now has its first case of the COVID-19 virus. So we want to continue to be in prayer for all of those infected with this virus. Tonight I chose to take a route that was a little disturbing to me on some of the news that I received last week. And due to the fact I couldn't really get answers that satisfied me, I took the opportunity to take a few days and to reach out to some officials and to gain some information and to get some clarity on some things. Now, I want to, I guess, put a little disclaimer in this. I'm not an expert by no means. I'm basing this on an opinion from my personal studies and research, but also gleaning some information from constitutional attorneys and different people like that. The ones that know me know that I've been a student of American history, early American history anyway, for quite a few years now. I've took some constitutional classes. I've also taken some classes that deals with our civil government and how it operates, along with our Tennessee Constitution. Looked into it a bit. So I have a little bit of understanding, but again, I'm no way an expert in this. So here we have quarantine, shutdowns, still have limiting assembly, only allowed around a certain amount of people, or rather a number of people, and in this case it's 10 people or less. And last week I was listening to our governor, and he was at the time considering mandating or enforcing these executive orders. And immediately the question popped up for me is, can he do this lawfully without infringing upon our First Amendment right, in particular the free exercise clause of our First Amendment? And as Christians, many times, and we don't do it intentionally, it's just if we're not careful, many times if we're not careful, we feel that we can bypass the rule of law simply because we are governed by a higher law. But we know for a fact that God expects us to follow the laws of the land as long as they're not conflicting with His law. And sometimes we do this, especially if we think that for somehow it's making us choose between following God or allowing government to dictate to us. So I would ask that each one of us, maybe if it's just for this time, this video, if we could set aside our traditions and let's look at this logically. I believe in doing so, if we will do this, we can make better decisions in determining if we are being asked to forsake our right of worship or compromising their faith. I feel in the future, I hope it's not the near future, but in the future, that we will have to answer these questions. I believe that our faith, we will be asked to compromise our faith, but are we being asked to do that now? At the end of the day, any Christian, at the end of the day, our goal is to make sure that we have pleased God, if all possible, while at the same time following the rule of the law of our government. So I had to ask the question, who has the authority to do this? These orders being given by our president, our state governor, and then in many cases, like you can see in New York City and other states, the mayors of the cities are giving these orders and these mandates. And again, as I said, I've been a student of our U.S. Constitution and state constitution for a few years. And most people today thinks that our president wields the most power, but actually in these circumstances, our state governors and even our local mayors has more power than our president, or at least that's the way our Constitution is actually set up. And for that reason is probably why President Trump is reaching out to all of the state's governors, and he's trying to ask them to follow these mandates and implement them in their respective states. We see that the state also has power, or rather, let me back up. The federal government, the power that it has is the power that is given to it by our U.S. Constitution. The states not only has the power of the U.S. Constitution, but also its state constitution, but they have something else that our federal government doesn't have, and it's called police powers. Now remember, I'm trying to determine, one, who has the authority, and number two, can they do this? Can they enforce this? And again, I want to reiterate, our governor has made it clear this is not a mandate. He does not want to take away any one of the citizens' civil liberties. So I've been listening and reading behind some constitutional lawyers for quite some time and really brushed up on it again this past week. And one of the attorneys brought up an old U.S. Supreme Court case that addressed the usefulness of the state power. In it stated that state governments could have laws regarding public health. Public health normally falls under the state power of this thing we know as police power. So what we are seeing in some states are governors and mayors setting restrictions on gathering, but not only gathering, but the size of the gathering, shutting down of businesses, closing schools, churches, etc. So we ask the question again, can they do this without infringing upon our First Amendment rights? In a normal situation, the answer is obvious. No, they cannot do it. But in an emergency situation or circumstances, they can do this. In Tennessee, this is found in our state statutes, and I've actually read those this week. The yes, they can is found also in something called strict scrutiny. What strict scrutiny is, it was looked at in a case, but I'm not even going to cover that case. But this is the strict possible test of government actions. In other words, is the emergency extreme enough that the government could police these orders if needed. No doubt that the government could prove their case in regards to the COVID-19 virus and all of the infections and all the deaths that's not only in America but all over the world, so the case could be made. Again, Monday and then today, our governor reiterated that this was not a mandate. I honestly feel that Governor Lee is doing everything possible to not have to police these executive orders. That's why it's so imperative that you and I follow these requests. If people decides not to comply, our governor is likely to be forced to do this, or the health officials will move more into the local levels and begin to ask the mayors of our cities and counties to take this action. Listen, many of you watching today voted for Bill Lee because we felt that he was the man for the job. And as much as we could possibly do this, we did trust him. And Christians like myself voted for him because they thought that he was a godly man and that he would seek God for help in what he should do as what most Christians do. As of today, I see no reason why we should now think that he is somewhat against us or that he doesn't care about the impact, the negative impact that this will have on our state economy. Yes, he can do this, but he cannot do this indefinitely. When things begin to return to normal or the situation eases, these executive orders will have to be removed, or the state will now become in violation of our constitutional rights. Again, I reiterate, I am not an expert, but only a concerned citizen and a Christian that is spending time trying to find these answers. Because the answers and the decisions we make, we are not only going to be judged by a law of the land, but will be judged by the laws of God also. Is our religious liberties being infringed upon today? My answer is no. Why? Because more questions we can ask and immediately come up with the answer. Are we as Christians being singled out by our government? No. Are they allowing others to return to normalcy while restricting the church from gathering? No. Are we being threatened, or has any of us been stopped from sharing the gospel message, whether it's on YouTube, Facebook, or our personal or our church websites? None that I know of. In Tennessee, churches are being asked not to gather just like everyone else. We are being asked to do this to help slow the spread of a virus. I'm reading reports from organizations that usually try to report the truth. A report coming out of New York City that the mayor there says if churches and synagogues do not comply, he will shut them down permanently. Can he do this lawfully? Absolutely not. He cannot do this. Governor Lee extends a safer at home order until April the 14th. At this point, I think we should follow that. President Trump extends federal social distancing guidelines to April the 30th. We need to likewise follow. I ask all Christians to always be prepared and to always make preparations. I'm not going to elaborate, but I believe at some point in history, as I've mentioned, the church will be targeted, and we will have to make some very serious decisions about making a hard stand. I ask that you would share this video. I ask that you would also return back to this YouTube channel Wednesday night at 6:30 as I share in corporate prayer, repentance, with emphasis being on national repentance. Right now, the church has a unique opportunity. More people are open to the message of the cross, the good news of the gospel, than we have probably seen since 9/11. Yes, we need to be concerned if government starts infringing on our rights. And there's a lot of voices speaking out there that's telling us that that's what they are doing. I can't speak for the rest of the country, but in Tennessee, with the statutes that I have read, with the understanding of our constitutions, and listening to listening to constitutional attorneys, I do not see that that is the issue today, or at least not in Tennessee. Now is not the time to be arguing and fighting. Now is the time that we must come together, one, as America always should, to overcome this, and two, as Christians, that we can take this gospel to a world that's dying lost, and people are dying and spending hell in eternity forever. We must keep our focus on what we are doing. I hope that tonight will help you somewhat in decisions that you have to make on whether or not that you follow these executive orders or you defy them. In my opinion, they are not overstepping their boundaries at this point. At some point, they may do that, but I don't think that's today. May God bless you, and may God bless America, as America blesses God.